You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge. Witness the strength. Street knowledge. Street knowledge.
Terrorize the jam like troops in Pakistan.
Street knowledge. Street knowledge. Quick service announcement brought to you in part by Warriors.
Damn, that shit was dope.
And welcome back to another Warrior Creed live stream with me, the radical Majid Nawaz. And what a day it is. What a stream this will prove to be, because President Trump has been inaugurated for his third term in office. Yes, you heard me correctly. For his third term in office as President of the United States, the 47th President of the United States, as well as the 45th and the 46th, President Biden being as illegitimate as he was. This is the topic for today's stream. And don't worry, we're going to bring you all the receipts. But as you can see, as is the title of the stream today, Trump pardons the Jan 6 revolutionaries and revokes 51 security clearances for their lying over the Hunter Biden laptop story. We're going to bring you all the receipts today to demonstrate the following. We're going to demonstrate, as we've been saying since 2020, during the actual time, in the moment that it happened, live on LBC, for which we were cancelled and sacked off air. LBC still owes us 3 months of salary because they sacked me over Twitter for the content of what is going to be the stream today. And time is vindicating. Apologies for being slightly late in streaming this to you all today. I know many of you were waiting on the live stream link, but at the end of the day, we had to make sure that for a stream as historic as is today's, we had to cross all our T's and dot all our I's so that everybody could finally understand just how President Trump has been vindicated. All of those Jan 6 revolutionaries have been vindicated, and everybody who spoke up in November 2020 and made it very clear that there was election interference and a deep state plot to unseat the 46th rightful president of the United States of America has now been vindicated. And you're going to see in the course of this stream precisely and exactly how that was. So let us begin by, first of all, acknowledging the fact that Donald Trump is now the president. He was sworn in yesterday. One of our friends sent a meme to me over a private message saying that this is for once a Monday that people will be looking forward to, because as of yesterday, Monday, the 20th of January, President Trump has been sworn in as president of the United States of America. And as you can see on your screens now, from this Trump War Room post, President Donald J. Trump takes his first official actions: cabinet and sub-cabinet appointments, acting designations and appointments, commission chair and acting chair appointments, a proclamation ordering flags to be flown at full mast on all inauguration days. And here indeed is video of President Trump signing his very first executive orders, which he signed on the very first day of inauguration, making it very clear who's in charge. Have a look at this.
First is 22 cabinet and cabinet level appointments for your signature. Okay. The next one will be, next one will be 47 sub-cabinet level appointments, sir.
But you don't have to sign 47 times.
Thank you, sir. You now have 31 acting designations and appointments to effectively take control of the government. Let's do that. That's important.
That's important, isn't it?
We have 15 commission chairman and acting chairman appointments.
Send here.
Commission chairman and acting chairman.
He was #1 at Harvard also. You know that?
Good counsel.
They have something in common.
Thank you, sir. Lastly, we have a proclamation ordering that on all future inauguration days, including this inauguration day, that flags shall be flown at full mast.
Very important.
It was a beautiful place to have an inauguration tonight. The sound was so good. The temperature was 72 degrees. But the sound was so good. Maybe something to think about.
Flags will be flown at full mast. Did you catch that? There's more to this show than people realize. And as is on your screens now, a meme to bring a smile to your faces, a crying grave face saying to a depicted Trump with a beard, no less, on the meme, it says, "You're literally Satan and will never be allowed to return ever." And then Trump, the meme depicts the picture of Trump going in to whisper into the grey face's ear, "I'm back, bitch." And this is what we're dealing with. We are dealing with the fact that President Trump, as stated here, it's been a long 4 years since 2020. Real Donald Trump. This is us tweeting at Donald Trump. But welcome to your third term. Next stop, Nigel Farage becomes Prime Minister of the UK. And that will happen. Now, to unpack this, why do we keep saying third term? Of course, recently on Winston Marshall's podcast, I said the same, third term. And Winston interrupted me and said, it is not proven that the interference in the Hunter Biden laptop story would have affected or swung the result in Trump's favor. He was doing his job, of course, as an interviewer to question me on what is admittedly a controversial claim, the claim that this is Trump's third term and that Biden basically won in 2020 through fraud. And our point is that fraud vitiates everything and that nothing that Biden did since that date in November 2020 onwards was really legitimate because it was fraudulent. Because as has been demonstrated, 51 very senior national security officials interfered in the presidential election by claiming that the Hunter Biden laptop story was an act of Russian disinformation. And the fact is, they knew at the time that they interfered in that presidential election that the Hunter Biden laptop story was genuine. And therefore, this was a fraudulent intervention. And this is why President Trump has now revoked the security clearances of all of those 51 senior national security officials. Shame on them, because at the time they had absolutely no excuse. I was on LBC, the only British national broadcaster to host an interview with an editor from the New York Post, the newspaper that ran the Hunter Biden laptop story. His name was Sohrab Ahmari. That interview is still up online. We will publish tomorrow in the written version of this Radical Dispatch receipts depicting that interview to demonstrate it's still up online on LBC's platform. The Hunter Biden laptop story was known to be real then. If a lowly broadcaster knew that the story was real when it broke, how on earth are 51 security officials, senior security officials at that, national security officials, how on earth are they expecting to get away with the pretense that they thought that this was an act of Russian disinformation? So when they then briefed social media executives, CEOs of companies and editors of newspapers and politicians in both houses, when these 51 national security officials briefed all of those categories that this Hunter Biden laptop story, which demonstrated that Hunter Biden, on behalf of his father, then Vice President Biden, was engaged in a pay-to-play money laundering scheme, and that therefore President Biden was suspected of having been captured by an enemy power. This story, of course, would involve allegations of treason, of selling out American interests for money. And if those 51 national security officials knew that this is what was going on, as they did, and at the time it was a matter of public record, to the extent that even a lowly broadcaster knew it was going on and broadcast it on LBC and lost his job for it, then the act of these 51 national security officials in denying the veracity of this story was an act of election interference on behalf of a foreign power, that foreign power being the CCP in China, to whom this Hunter Biden laptop story beholds Hunter and his father, the big guy, President Biden. All of this background will be reposted for you in the written version of this stream, The Radical Dispatch, tomorrow. But what that demonstrates is that they interfered with the election knowingly, and in knowingly doing so, committed an act of treason in the name of national security. A very serious charge, nevertheless, a true and correct charge. Now, the world has been upside down since. Truth speakers have been humiliated, ostracized, and systematically their lives and livelihoods have been destroyed, and they've been reduced to broadcasting from their bedrooms. Meanwhile, Biden became president, and those 51 national security officials that backed him remained in charge in the background for the last 4 years, attempting to imprison the legitimate president of the United States. People were up in arms. And this is why those revolutionaries on Jan 6 went to the Capitol building attempting to defend their republic, but they went and was set up. As Tucker Carlson revealed from CCTV footage on his own show before he left Fox, and was also reduced to broadcasting effectively from his bedroom, the CCTV footage on Jan 6 demonstrates Capitol Police lifting the ropes and letting those protesters into the Capitol building, showing them around. And yet this incident was used to try and pin it on President Trump that he incited an insurrection, when in reality those Jan 6 protesters were revolutionaries attempting to save the republic from the treason of these 51 national security officials. And that is why it is correct and true and accurate for President Trump to have pardoned 1,500 J6 prisoners, which is precisely what he did. The Times reports it here. Dated the 21st of January, January 6 convicts prepare to walk out of prison after Trump pardons. Subheading, relatives and supporters celebrate Donald Trump's decision to sign pardons for 1,500 people convicted in connection with the riots. Now, the truth is, and we said this at the time, we'll print all these receipts tomorrow. The truth is, at the time it was known that Jan 6 was an inside job, that it was a setup in an effort to entrap those revolutionary protesters who were attempting to raise the alarm of the treason that we've just described. The rope was lifted for them so that they could be entrapped inside the Capitol building as rioters. And then the real on-the-ground agitators of the day were provided by Antifa and BLM, since having been exposed as yet another money laundering scheme. That was all known on the day and reported by me on LBC as it unfolded. James Rayer, Tom Chill, the director of broadcasting for Global's LBC, and Tom Chill being the editor for LBC, both of you know that we were reporting this as it unfolded live. And that is the truth that everybody is going to have to now face up to, because time is vindicating and justice is coming. So as they report, President Trump has rightly pardoned those Jan 6 revolutionaries because they were in fact defending democracy against the real treason conducted by those who interfered in the elections of 2020. And here is video of President Trump signing the J6 pardons for 1,500 Jan 6 revolutionaries.
A list of pardons and commutations relating to events that occurred on January 6, 2021.
Okay, and how many people is this?
I think this order will apply to approximately 1,500 people, sir.
So this is January 6th, and these are the hostages. Approximately 1,500 for a pardon.
Yes.
Full pardon.
Full pardon or commutation?
Full pardon. We have about 6 commutations in there where we're doing further research.
Okay.
Nice to see you again.
And you, John.
So this is a big one. Anything you want to explain about this? We hope they get them. We hope they come out tonight, frankly. We're expecting it. Approximately 1,500 people. Six.
Justice is coming. Everybody is going to find out the truth. The truth was known back then, as you can see again from the Guardian headline that exposed my own reporting on the story, obviously negatively. You can see there on your screens, the Guardian reports 31st of January 2021. That's the January immediately after the election of 2020. All right. This is how immediately we all knew the truth. The Guardian reports the headline, LBC's Majid Nawaz's fascination with conspiracies raises alarm. And then in the smaller subheading, the radio host has been criticized for his tweets on the coronavirus, obviously having opposed every single COVID mandate and the US elections. And here's an extract that we're going to read from that Guardian article for you. Following the attack on the US Capitol, Nawaz retweeted false claims that it was Antifa or anti-fascist groups who orchestrated the raid rather than Trump supporters. There seems to be a difference between the Nawaz we can hear on LBC and the one we might follow on Twitter, said Professor Matthew Feldman, an expert in radical right ideology. He is certainly not the most concerning by a long shot, but has been posting really mischievous stuff online since Trump's defeat. His big following means his words have impact because of some of the things he retweets, and it is quite possible he does not realize that. It is sad, as I'm an admirer of much of the magnificent work he's done recently on the treatment of the Uyghurs. That's the Uyghurs in China. Well, Mr. Professor Feldman, you who brought the knives out against people like me and all those Jan 6 protesters that obviously went through a lot worse than just losing their jobs. You, Professor Feldman, you, editor of LBC, Tom Cheel, you, director for broadcasting at Global's LBC, James Raya, all of you, the 51 national security officials who betrayed their country and betrayed those Jan 6 revolutionaries and interfered in this election, all of you will face justice, because the issue is too important simply to let slide, considering that this, as Liz Churchill, is what happened. These are the Jan 6 convicted revolutionaries who sadly took their own lives from the stress of it all in prison. Remember their names. You can see them there on the screen. Mark Angst, I hope I've pronounced that correctly. Chris Stanton, Jord Meacham, and Matthew Perner. These are those who took their own lives because they were wrongly and falsely convicted for being traitors when indeed they were attempting to save the republic, defend democracy, and stand up for the rightful president of the United States. And the truth, as it has been now revealed, is that those 51 national security officials who lied about the Hunter Biden laptop story, and that Hunter and his father, Joe Biden, were financially beholden to foreign interests in a pay-for-play blackmail scheme. It is very clear now who was on the right of that line and who was on the wrong side of that line. And this is why President Trump has revoked the security clearance of those 51 national security officials. You can see here, as posted on the House Judiciary Committee's own page, reading it for you from your screens, Trump revokes security clearances of 51 Intel officials who signed discredited Hunter Biden laptop letter. Another win. Reminder, we deposed many of these officials to get to the bottom of the entire hoax. This is a formal House Judiciary Committee report. On your screens now, Judiciary Committee releases transcripts of intelligence officials who discredited the Hunter Biden story. We will post all of these receipts for you online tomorrow, including those transcripts. It is verified now that it was not Russian disinformation, and it is proven that those 51 officials knew that it was not Russian disinformation, and that the laptop was genuine, even though they continued to push out the lie that it was Russian disinformation. And as you can see, dated 31st of March 2023, Radical Media posted an article there called Historic First. President Trump is indicted, not Hillary Clinton, not Hunter Biden, not Anthony Fauci, and certainly not anyone on Jeffrey Epstein's client list. In that article, dated 2023, March the 31st, was the following. You can see very clearly now, we've stated it, that this laptop from hell was so bad that 51 former security officials were initially rolled out during an election cycle to claim that it was a Russian disinformation campaign. But as the New York Post reports, it was originally their story. And you can see their headline, Spies Who Lie. 51 intelligence experts refuse to apologize for discrediting true Hunter Biden story. And we've put at the bottom there, Hunter Biden was never indicted. They tried to destroy the lives of the President of the United States of America. They banned him from social media. They tried to throw him in jail. They tried to assassinate him. They threw all of those Jan 6 protesters in jail, some of whom tragically took their own lives because of the stress, such as these four, again on your screens: Mark Angst, Chris Stanton, Jord Meacham, and Matthew Perner. They sacked people, canceled people from their jobs, as we've demonstrated, for speaking out about this story. And all along, it was a true story. And now you can see this from the House Intelligence Committee, a press release dated the 25th of June, 2024. And it says there, new information shows CIA contractors colluded with the Biden campaign to discredit Hunter Biden laptop story. We're going to read to you a section from that press release from the House Intelligence Committee. It has got to a point where it's undeniable. Here is a section from that report. You can see from the Select Committee on Intelligence, the House Committee on the Judiciary, and the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government released a joint interim staff report titled The Intelligence Community 51, How CIA Contractors Colluded with the Biden Campaign to Mislead American Voters. The report reveals new information detailing how the highest levels of the Central Intelligence Agency, up to and including then CIA Director Gina Haspel, were made aware of the public statement on the Hunter Biden emails by 51 former intelligence officials prior to its approval and publication. The report reveals new facts, such as how some of the statement signatories, including former Deputy CIA Director Michael Morell, were on active contract with the CIA at the time they issued the Hunter Biden statement to discredit damaging allegations about Biden family influence peddling just weeks before the 2020 presidential election. This is why Trump revoked all of those security clearances for every single one of those 51 national security officials. Once their security clearances were revoked, which is now, they've been revoked, it clears the way for what? Well, of course, if you no longer have security clearances, you're no longer vetted, and then there's declassification, and it all comes out exactly what you were involved in. Of course, justice is what that leaves, and justice is coming. And we put it to you, this is why Trump has promised to declassify everything. As you can see there, reported by Disclosed TV, Trump promises to declassify the JFK, RFK, MLK records. That's the two Kennedys and Martin Luther King, and other topics of great public interest in the coming days. It's all going to be declassified, and it's all going to come out to the extent that the senior executive service who run the deep state and the bureaucracy, and therefore were running Biden on behalf of those 51 national security officials, they themselves, known as the Senior Executive Committee, Trump just signed an executive order getting rid of them all. They no longer have their jobs. They no longer have their security clearances. Justice is coming. Have a look at this.
What are you signing now, sir?
It's an executive order relating to reforms to the federal workforce, including to the senior executive service.
We're getting rid of all of the cancer. I call it cancer. The cancer caused by the Biden administration.
The cancer. Getting rid of all the cancer. You want more? Because there's a heck of a lot of cancer. Trump's nomination, his pick for Attorney General Pam Bondi, has stated that anyone connected to Jeffrey Epstein has no legal grounds to prevent their names from being revealed in public records, as reported there by Shadow of Ezra online. Everything is going to be declassified. And again, have a listen to President Trump saying exactly this.
To government, we will also reverse the overclassification of government documents, and in the coming days, we are going to make public remaining records relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, his brother Robert Kennedy, as well as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and other topics of great public interest. It's all going to
It's all going to be released, Uncle Sam. And just as we said in last week's Warrior Creed stream, the issue is that these security officials that had high-end national security clearances and went after their enemies and removed everything from their own national security clearances, took their jobs from them, attempted to financially suffocate them, threw some of them in prison. The truth is, these people were blackmailing politicians and public figures using compromat linked to Epstein so that they could force these public officials to go after their enemies. That's how they weaponized, that's how the deep state weaponized the state to go after people like President Trump. The problem is they lost. It's as simple as that. And now Trump's pick for Attorney General is saying, as well as all this declassification that you just saw Trump saying is coming, what's going to be the punishment for these people once they've lost their national security clearances and everything about them is declassified and their entire treachery is available for everybody to see? Well, what's going to be their punishment? This is where Trump's Attorney General, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, is saying that she is reintroducing legislation allowing pedophiles to face the death penalty. She stated that Congress previously refused to support the bill until President Trump brought attention to the issue. Luna declares that the United States is facing a serious crisis with crimes against children. Those involved in the blackmail and the compromising material will first be declassified, and then, of course, there will be a death penalty sought against those who are criminals. That's why Pam Bondi is saying that she is going to declassify everything. So here's first video of Pam Bondi saying exactly that, Trump's pick for Attorney General, that she will declassify everything.
Garland and the Justice Department are so quiet on this tonight. You know, they're out there labeling parents domestic terrorists, yet they're saying nothing about this. And these documents were so slow to come out. Human trafficking is a multi-billion-dollar business in this country, and Jeffrey Epstein is dead, and Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for 20 years where she belongs. And if people in that report are still fighting to keep their names private, Sean, they have no legal basis to do so unless they're a child, a victim, or a cooperating defendant by some chance against some potential case against Ghislaine Maxwell. And I think Mark Garagos, as a great criminal defense attorney, will back that up as well.
Do you see it yet? Remove their security clearances. Remove them from the bureaucracy and the deep state. Declassify all of their names. And then seek the death penalty for those involved in the sexual abuse of children, which is part of the compromat material or the blackmail that was used to weaponize these officials against their political opponents. And on the seeking of the death penalty that we said Representative Anna Paulina Luna has reintroduced in terms of legislation, here she is telling you exactly why she did that.
Long story short, I was really pushing this last Congress, and I was pretty surprised that there didn't seem to be a massive appetite to push this. I mean, it got a lot of good press, but when it was introduced, you just didn't see a lot of my colleagues wanting to jump on board in regards to fighting this specifically, which I thought was interesting. And then President Trump actually started talking about it on the campaign trail right before his election. So now that President Trump has really, I think, taken this issue and elevated it, I think that there's a lot more support for it. And I actually had mentioned it and brought it up to him when I was with him over the weekend at dinner. And, you know, we can't pass something like this by executive order because it would, in many cases, raise the mandatory minimums for some of these crimes. And so it has to be done through Congress first. And so I think an issue like this specifically, we know, especially with what happened under Joe Biden's administration with the open door policies, we know that there's a lot of people that have been impacted, specifically women and specifically children, which is unfortunate. But the unfortunate truth is the United States has a very big problem with child pornography, sex trafficking, and then also crimes against children and women especially. So for me specifically, this is a very personal issue. It's very something that I've really had at the foundation of what I ran on for Congress, and then also too, even before I got into politics as an activist. And so I'm hoping that this gets traction, that it passes, and then it will eventually be.
What do we say? We are coming. Justice will be served. And that is why we put to you that President Biden, knowing that this is coming around the corner, did the following. As the Times reports and is on your screens now, in a disgusting move, Biden preemptively pardons family members to avoid Trump, quote, revenge. Subheading, outgoing president's last act also used to grant clemency to officials, including Anthony Fauci. That's the Times reporting Monday, January the 20th, and we're going to read a section from that for you. President Biden pardoned 5 members of his family as his final act in office, shielding them and other key officials from possible investigation by the Trump administration. The pardons are for his brothers, James and Francis Biden, and his sister, Valerie Biden Owens, and the spouses of James and Owens. Biden had already pardoned his son, Hunter, in December for firearms and tax convictions. Owens was her brother's confidant during his presidency. The pardons for his family were announced a few hours after pardons for Anthony Fauci, that's the COVID misinformation government official who imposed all the mandates and tried to convince the world to impose all those COVID mandates. The pardons for his family, we continue reading, were announced a few hours after pardons for Anthony Fauci, Biden's COVID advisor, the retired General Mark Milley, the House committee that investigated the January 6th attack on the US Capitol 4 years ago, and the police witnesses to their inquiry. Trump, who has frequently threatened the 9 committee members, including his Republican opponent, Liz Cheney, with jail, the committee recommended charging Trump with several crimes, including attempting to incite an insurrection. Do you see what Biden's done? He preemptively pardoned all of them because he fears precisely what Trump is currently now doing was going to happen. That was remove their national security clearances, dismiss them from the deep state, declassify everything about them, and then prosecute them. And those who are guilty of serious child sex abuse, provide them the death sentence, especially if they deserve it. Now, to continue reading from that Times article, because you may think, well, if Biden's pardoned them, Majid, how on earth do we get them? The truth is, there is still a way. And that is, as the Times elaborates in the following extract from that article dated the 21st of January. Checking the date again, is that the 20th, it should say, the 20th of January. In reality, these pardons will not absolutely protect these individuals from being subpoenaed to give new testimony on prior claims. Lying in such interviews or hearings would constitute new criminal acts, said the legal professor Jonathan Turley of George Washington University Law School. In the case of Fauci, some members, such as Senator Rand Paul, have suggested that he lied under oath repeatedly about his knowledge of the Wuhan lab. If called again, he would have to repeat or disavow the earlier testimony. It was unclear whether those pardoned by Biden would need to accept the former president's offer. Acceptance would be seen by Trump supporters as a tacit admission of guilt and validation of their suspicions that the January 6th inquiry was a witch hunt. At least two Democratic committee members, Adam Schiff and Peter Aguilar, had previously said that they would not seek a pardon for this reason. So the point there that you heard is that if there were to be a formal investigation, yes, they've been pardoned. The pardon was for past crimes. However, if they're called again, people like Fauci, people like Milley, General Milley, who lied about the stands accused of lying about the Jan 6. The names, are in this one here. Let's find them again. Anthony Fauci, retired General Mark Milley, and the House committee that investigated the Jan 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol. To be clear, that's the reference there. Forgive me, just summarizing it, but it's better just to read it directly because these are legal accusations. So the pardon, people may think, forgives them and absolves them of all past crimes. But if those names that we just read, including Hunter Biden, by the way, are asked formally to re-testify and they lie in their new testimony, that's a new crime. Now, think about it. Either they're going to continue the story that they've been telling up until this point, which would mean lying under oath. And of course, if they don't continue telling the news story, then they've lied under previous oath. And so which one would it be? And that's why they could be committing new crimes. And that's where there is potentially a route to bring justice. But either way, it's something from the Guardian article again that we warned of at the time it happened, 31st of January 2021. That's the January immediately after the November 2020 election interference against President Trump. And to quote from the article, this month, Nawaz also signed an open letter to the FBI and other Western intelligence organizations, urging them to investigate whether COVID-19 lockdowns are a global fraud designed to impoverish the West by the Chinese Communist Party. Oh dear, it's all coming out, isn't it? And those who were made into the criminals, the conspiracy theorists, those who were turned into outcasts, those whose reputations were maligned, those who were hounded out of work, those who were put into jail, those who were vilified have now been vindicated. And justice will come for those who did the vilifying as the hunters become the hunted. And the same situation, mind you, will apply to the UK. On those preemptive pardons, they have, by the way, hanged themselves by their own petard. It is here, I think, relevant for you to witness the words of those who were criticizing President Trump from fear that he would preemptively pardon members of his own family while they sought to imprison him. And yet Biden did exactly what they were accusing that Trump, if he did, would be doing so maliciously. Have a look at this.
Is that a thing? Preemptive blanket pardons? I mean, I haven't heard about this since like Monopoly with a get out of jail free card.
Trump has discussed with advisors whether to grant preemptive pardons. What does that say? That he wants to excuse them for things before anybody's even saying there's an investigation.
President Trump, as he winds down his last few weeks in office, is considering preemptive pardons. What a mess. More as we know.
Source saying that some of the president's inner circle Well, they're telling him that it would be perfectly fine to pardon his family and other associates preemptively, even though they haven't been charged with any crimes. How much damage could be done to this country?
Oh dear. Hang themselves by their own petard, have they done so? And that is why this story will not go away. And of course, as we just said, the same can be said about the UK. The security officials have not just failed, for failure is too kind a word to describe what's been happening both in the US and the UK. We use the word that they are complicit in these in the treason that we are describing. And you only need to look at the revelations that were perfectly timed in a very suspicious manner to coincide with Trump's inauguration, so as to bury the story that the UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, knew that the Southport terrorist who engaged in a child massacre using a knife by stabbing innocent children to death in a mass killing, that terrorist, Keir Starmer knew, the government knew that he had been referred to the counter-extremism authorities in the UK, to the PREVENT program, no less than 3 times. And yet the government failed to act. And then once the murder occurred, Prime Minister Keir Starmer, knowing that this killer had been referred already to the government's counter-extremism units, concealed that information from the British public, which is why Nigel Farage has posted, "At last, the truth. The Southport murderer was reported to PREVENT 3 times. That's the UK's counter-extremism strategy. The cover-up has been a disgrace. I was right all along." And here is Nigel Farage saying exactly that on video.
Think of that horrendous murder of those 3 girls in Southport last summer. Just 24 hours afterwards, there was a huge amount of speculation about who the suspected murderer was. I put out this video. I asked this basic question.
I have to say there are 1 or 2 questions. Was this guy being monitored by the security services? Some reports say he was, others less sure. I just wonder whether the truth is being withheld from us. I don't know the answer to that, but I think it is a fair and legitimate question.
So I asked the question, was he known to the authorities? No answer came from the police. No answer came from the Prime Minister. No answer came from the Home Secretary. And for daring to ask a question that the public deserved to know and should have known, and actually had they known, might have stopped much of the online speculation that led to rioting on the scale that we saw. No, nothing was forthcoming at all. I was even told I wasn't allowed to ask a question in the House of Commons about the identity of this man and whether he was known. Well, I was right all along. 3 times this young man was given to PREVENT. They clearly haven't acted correctly. It seems that other members of his family knew what his intentions were. And we have had one of the worst cover-ups I think I've ever seen in my lifetime. I was completely vilified for daring to ask these questions. This is 2-tier policing. This is 2-tier governmental approach to who lives in this country. It is an outrage. And I can tell you, actually, I'm angrier today than I've been at any point.
And our point, as you can see on your screens now, is the terrorist name, by the way, Axel Rudukabana. Our point here is Axel Rudukabana, at what point does it stop looking like mere failure and start looking a lot more like complicity? And the reason we ask that is because, of course, this comes fresh off the back of last week's scandal, where Keir Starmer and his government are accused of being complicit in the underage rape grooming gang scandal that blew up here and rocked the UK establishment. And in that vein, we sat down with Winston Marshall saying exactly that. It wasn't failure, they were complicit. The truth about Britain's rape gangs, our Muslim supremacist problem, Labour cover-up, failure of multiculturalism, and how to unite the country. And we're saying that the very same failures, security failures that you witnessed in the US with those 51 security officials, those very similar types of failures by the deep state have been occurring here in the UK. They are complicit in those cover-ups because they weren't mere failures. They were acts done to sabotage the country. And here's the trailer, by the way, for that interview that I did with Winston, which will be up on his YouTube page, but also the link to which we'll publish in tomorrow's written version of this stream with the Radical Dispatch.
The problem is multiculturalism in this country has failed. The scandal now, the current 2025 scandal, is the cover-up. Because the cover-up was orchestrated because Keir Starmer, local police and local councils and social services didn't fail. They didn't. They were complicit. This was an organised operation, not just on the street level with the British Pakistani gangs, but actually this organisation went through into the police, into the councils, and into the care workers. Do you acquire this compromising material over politicians like Lord Nazir Ahmed, hang it over them and say, I've got this on you, you need to do what I say?
What's going on in these communities that this is even happened?
This is a problem in Pakistan, this is a problem in Afghanistan, and it's now a problem in Britain. By the way, there's a methodology to it. The thing you're worried about is going to come back with a vengeance if you don't speak the truth. Your desire to burn the country over these sorts of issues are founded on what? If you don't accept the traditions and culture of this country, you're engaged in subversion against this country. The failure of multiculturalism, integration, citizenship, Muslim belonging in Europe. It's got to a point now where we can't escape this question. We're literally at that decision point. Is there going to be a civil war, and do we all kill each other, or do we figure out a solution?
And that conversation with Winston Marshall is up on his YouTube page. We'll publish the link tomorrow in tomorrow's Radical Dispatch. But the point we're making here is that the same failure of the 51 national security officials in the US is the failure of the UK deep state. Both surround allegations of underage sex abuse. Hunter Biden's laptop, which those 51 former officials covered up, related to similar themes of his prolific behavior with regards sexual behavior, that is, or sexual deviant behavior that was on this full view on that laptop as was found on the hard drive. And of course, all of this we're alleging was done for the purposes of blackmailing politicians with compromat so as to force them to do the bidding against the interests of their own country, as we saw in the 2020 election when the compromised Hunter Biden with the compromised Joe Biden named as the big guy on that laptop in a pay-for-play scandal were alleged to have been in the pockets of foreign powers working against the legitimate president of the US, and that would be President Trump. All of this links to the compromat, which is why it's important to mention here that the compromat was coordinated by Epstein. You can see there an image of Epstein with Keir Starmer's next selection for the UK ambassador to the US, Lord Peter Mandelson, who was Tony Blair's Dark Prince, he was known as. He was Tony Blair's vampire who would use compromat to force politicians to follow Tony Blair headlong into war. But since we raised that in last week's stream, again, Trump has made it clear as president, or his camp have at least, that they are awake to precisely what has been going on. As the Times demonstrates in this headline, dated the 19th of January, a day before the inauguration, is Mandelson's ambassador job under threat from MAGA? Subheading: Donald Trump could yet block Keir Starmer's choice for the plum role in Washington as the president-elect's team works with Nigel Farage's reform. And to quote from that article for you, members of Donald Trump's White House team are working with reform in Britain as speculation mounts that the incoming president could block Lord Mandelson as ambassador. Trump allies are also advising the new president to signal his displeasure at Sir Keir Starmer by putting him at the back of the queue when invitations are made to world leaders to meet him. Dame Karen Pierce, the outgoing British ambassador, will attend on behalf of the government. Mandelson will be absent, and some claim Trump is wary of his links to China. It is quite possible that he could still be rejected, sources within the Trump team said. For an ambassadorial nominee to formally take up their role, the head of state of the country that they've been sent to has to accept the letters of credence. In the UK, letters are presented to the king, and in the US to the president. And there you have it. As we stated at the beginning of this stream, justice is coming. And the way it's going to come is that their national security clearances will be revoked. They will lose their jobs. Information about them will be declassified. And then, where appropriate, legal action will be taken. And finally, where appropriate, the death sentence will be applied in the most extreme of cases against those who trafficked and raped underage children in all instances, whether it was those on-street gangs in the UK, such as those organized by the British Pakistani criminals, or whether it was those who worked in an organized crime fashion globally under the Mossad operation, that was coordinated by Epstein, involving people like Lord Mandelson, who visited Epstein Island, who are on the record. That photo there is him visiting Epstein Island, who are on the record having visited Epstein's mansion in New York after his conviction and having gone to Paris with Epstein for his birthday. Justice is coming, and as we say, in the most severe of cases, it will be those who have tortured and raped and drugged and abused underage children. In the most severe cases, they will face the death penalty. Justice is coming. This will not simply go away. The world had been turned upside down, but people, some of whom died in the process, raised their voices, did not give up, did not retreat, and did not surrender. Now there's a man who is president of the United States who, by everything we've just shown you on today's stream, is already taking action to bring the justice that we have since 2020 at least, but since before 2020, been promising is on the way. As we continuously say, we will not retreat. We will not surrender. We are coming. You've been listening to The Radical, Majid Nawaz, for this Warrior Creed live stream. We'll be back next week for the same. And tomorrow, as usual, we will publish the written version of this stream in the form of the Radical Dispatch. We thank all of our premium subscribers to Radical Media. They will gain access not just to this full stream as audio or visual podcast file, but they'll also gain access to the full Radical Dispatch, including those sections behind the paywall and many other products and services provided by Radical Media. We thank you for your subscriptions, for your premium subscriptions, because without you, we would not be able to continue this investigative broadcasting. Until next time, thank you for listening.
You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge. Witness the strength. Street knowledge. Street knowledge.
Terrorize the jam like troops in Pakistan.
Street knowledge. Street knowledge. Quick service announcement brought to you in part by